While the world has got their eye on the NBA Finals here in Cleveland, we've got our eye on the draft. And it's not the NFL draft this year, it's the NBA draft. We're ready to give you our final mock draft prior to the end of the NBA Finals. We'll see if Toronto can hold out after that Kevin Durant injury. And we will see what happens. It's June 20th is the NBA draft. And the Cavaliers will have the 5th pick in the draft, not the first pick, not the second pick, not the third pick. They'll have the 5th pick, also have the 26th pick. But let's go. Let's at least hit the first 5 picks. And we all know who's going to go number 1, Drew. It's going to be Zion. But
who's going number 1?
But what else is going to go along with that? Who is Zion going to play with? Do you think Anthony Davis is still going to be around when Zion puts on that hat?
When he puts on the hat, yes, I do.
Okay.
First of all, let me just say, Canada, do not take the 3-1 jokes from us. Take care of business here so that we can make 3-1 jokes for the rest of our lives, please. With that said, yes, I think with the way the NBA trades work, you have to actually make the pick before you can deal the with the superstar, right? You have to sort of have that pick made and the selection on the books so that the salary cap works. There's some stuff to this, but I think that the way it works is the Lakers and or the Knicks, whichever one of those two teams they decide to deal with, will make the selection, and that selection will be included. So, if it's it comes down to those two teams, I believe that's who Anthony Davis has said he will sign a long-term deal with. So those two teams happen to have the number 3 and number 4 overall pick. What David Griffin has said he's looking for is pretty interesting. He's outlined the parameters of the trade. So in exchange for Anthony Davis, what David Griffin has said he wants is 1 all-star player, 1 young player with all-star potential, and 2 first-round picks or 1 elite, really high first-round pick. So he's essentially looking for 3, players when you're talking about the Knicks and the Lakers. And so you start wondering, who's going to end up playing with Zion, because it will not be Anthony Davis when he goes out there for his summer ball and then for tip off next October and November. It will not be Anthony Davis. So you look at those two teams, right? And I'm so with the Knicks, you're probably going to be talking about RJ Barrett. Will be going over in that deal, and who goes along with him? There's 4 players, and I think they probably get 3 of them. Frank Ntilikina, Dennis Smith Jr., Mitchell Robinson, Kevin Knox. They probably want Dennis Smith Jr. Out of that deal, and potentially 1 more player. I don't know who they'll end up getting, but I think that's a pretty solid package. You get RJ Barrett, you get Dennis Smith Jr., and you get 1 more of those players. I think that satisfies a lot of those criteria that you're looking for. On the flip side, the Lakers, you get the 4th overall pick. I don't know who that ends up being. I personally like DeAndre Hunter. I know we're going to get into some more of this later in the podcast. We'll save some of that. So you get the 4th overall pick, and then you get your choice probably of 2 or 3 of the following: Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma, Isaac Bonga, and Josh Hart, right? So, that's pretty much what you end up with. I think the only position they're set at beyond Zion is point guard, which is Drew Holiday, which leads me to believe that the Knicks have the stronger offer because they can offer RJ Barrett and Dennis Smith Jr. 2 pretty good swing, players, wing level players that can sort of defend a little bit and score. And I think that's what you're looking for with that. There's not a lot of shooting on that roster if that's the way you go, but I think that's probably the way that I would lean over more of like the Lonzo Ball, who seems to be exclusive with Drew Holiday. You don't need both those players. So that's sort of the way that I would lean. I think either one, you can end up with some fair compensation. I think I'd rather have Anthony Davis, though.
Eric, what do you think? The Pelicans are going to start their team with Zion. The other player that Drew didn't mention, Jason Tatum. Is Jason Tatum a better option than the third pick, the fourth pick, anything else that the Lakers outside LeBron or the Knicks could offer?
Well, yeah, unfortunately, which is probably true because Drew's probably right, is that they want to trade him to the Knicks or the Lakers. I mean, selfishly, I like to see them trade them to a small market team, especially a team that's been down for such quite time that the Pelicans can get a top lottery draft pick, not only this year, maybe next year rolling forward. And three teams I can think about that fall into that category are the Suns, the Grizzlies, and the Hawks, who have been terrible for the last 5 years or so. The Hawks made the Eastern Conference Finals, 5 years ago, but they have 2 top 10 picks this year. I don't know what type of rebuild that David Griffin is trying to look for, but if you want to try to get young immediately and then try to build up from there, the Hawks would be a good starting point. Obviously, the Knicks and the Lakers, I think, have some decent players, but they have not shown it on the court. If I were the Pelicans, I would honestly kind of take a look at those other three teams and to say, not only can we move back a couple spots, we can try to get your pick next year and be in the same situation, as well as have our own pick. Maybe we could package that up to an earlier pick if we need to get to that situation. So, Jason Tatum would be a tremendous find, but I really don't know the direction that David Griffin's going, but he does, and he's a very good general manager. I wish the Cavs still had him, but I really am intrigued to see what he's going to do with the Pelicans. I know whatever he gets for Anthony Davis is going to be a very good haul, whether that's players now or players later or a combination. Like I said, they're going to do a good job in getting what they can for Anthony Davis, and they're obviously going to get Zion Williamson. So we'll see what happens.
I will say this: that if the Knicks don't make the trade, I think they have the room to sign 2 max free agents. And so, the one option that everybody brings up is Kyrie Irving, and I think that would be a pretty good start, to anybody's free agency list. And then the other option you hear out there, even with the Achilles, is Kevin Durant, offering him a max deal, knowing that he's probably not going to play this year. And then you get RJ Barrett and Dennis Smith Jr. So I hear that is on the table potentially.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the second pick in the 2019 draft. The Memphis Grizzlies most likely going to select Ja Morant. Eric, they're going to go Morant, right? And what do you do with Mike Conley Jr.? Do you keep him around, or do you move him? And are the Grizzlies going to be busy with trades on draft night?
Oh, I think it'd be a wise move for the Grizzlies to take Morant at number 2. Michael Conley has had a tremendous career. I didn't realize that he's now entering his 13th season. Yeah. But, he's had a pretty solid career. He's coming off of 21.1 points per game, his highest he's had his entire career. He was healthy, which also helps. He had some issues the last couple of years. So, you look at stocks and you say, when can you sell high? And I think this is a time you'd want to sell high. If you got Conley on your roster, there would be 2 situations I would see the Grizzlies trading Conley away. One would be preseason, where they could trade him to a contender that would need a guy who could be a reserve role or eat up some minutes and can kind of help off the bench in the playoffs. Or 2, mid-season, where also a contender would need somebody who could help be in the starting role, I guess, if it's an injury or some, dire situation where they would need somebody who could come in right away and immediately and help the team. I think from the Grizzlies standpoint, they need a guy who can kind of mentor these young guards on their team, So in an ideal situation, they would have Conley at least for the first half of the year and then trade him before the deadline. So, I don't think Conley's very long for the Grizzlies this year.
Yeah, it's a really good year of Conley. I didn't know he was 21 points a game. That's pretty impressive. Mm-hmm. Drew, do you think they surprise everyone? I think RJ Barrett's there. Why not go with Barrett?
You know my thoughts on RJ Barrett. I think that he's the guy that I would probably take at number 2 overall if I already had a point guard that I really like. But there's a big difference between Colin Sexton, who's 19 years old, who I really like, who can shoot, and Mike Conley, who was on the 2007 Ohio State, Final Four squad, right, with Greg Oden and those guys, right? So I think if I'm the Grizzlies, I probably take the point guard. I think it's a position that has a little more value than more of a wing type of a player. So I would probably take Morant if I were them. It's tough. I think RJ Barrett has the higher ceiling, and that's always what I look for in an NBA draft. But I can't fault them for taking Ja Morant. There's a lot to like about that game, and he could, in theory, learn from Mike Conley his first year, which might help.
All right, let's play a little bit of Vegas here with the third pick in the draft. The Knicks likely going to take RJ Barrett. A lot of trade rumors. If you're going to put some odds on the Knicks making the playoffs, what are you going to set those odds at?
I mean, it's an interesting question. I don't think they're as high as a lot of people would think looking at this Knicks roster as it's currently constructed, with Frank Ntilikina and Dennis Smith Jr. and Mitchell Robinson as your 3 probably best players right now. I think that the Eastern Conference is sort of ripe for the taking for any team outside of the top 4, maybe 5. Those last 3 spots anybody can get. And when you talk about adding RJ Barrett and Kyrie Irving to that roster, there's a major assumption right now that they signed Kyrie Irving, right? But I'm going to go ahead and make it, and I'm going to say those odds are pretty good. I wouldn't go any more than even money on the Knicks. I would not bet against them to make the playoffs, because I think they go out and get Kyrie Irving. I think they sell him on the chance to, which very few athletes get, the chance to turn around a New York franchise. Outside of like the Jets, there's not a whole lot of people that get that option and that want to take it. And I think that's what he wants. He wants to be in a big market, and he wants to be the man. And that's the only place that offers him both of those things. So I think that's where he ends up. And if he goes there, I certainly think the Knicks make the playoffs.
Okay, here's an interesting stat. So you look at the odds to win the 2020 NBA title. The Knicks are actually, and this is from lineups.com on May 26th. So this is probably before the Durant Achilles injury.
Before the Durant injury, yeah.
Yeah.
The Knicks are the 7th most likely team to win the NBA title next year, which is pretty wild. Plus 1,600 odds. That's to win the championship, not just make the playoffs. Yeah. So the odds are looking pretty good. Eric, are you going to disagree with that?
That's under the assumption. I would disagree with it now. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, I definitely would disagree with that. I mean, I keep hearing rumors, and I don't know why I keep feeling it, but Kyrie's from the New Jersey area. Brooklyn was New Jersey's former team. I could definitely see him going there. The Kevin Durant thing's kind of, I don't want to say dead in the water, but I don't know what's going to happen if he's just going to resign with Golden State. That's beside the point.
He's not playing most of next year.
He's obviously not playing, whoever he's under contract with. The Knicks, they could acquire some talented players, I guess, but they don't really have a good team. Where they were worse than the Cavs. They might have a couple guys they could draft, RJ Barrett, whoever, And I'm really expecting them to win maybe 30 games or so, and getting a couple spots lower than just outside of the playoffs. I'm struggling to find these wins that could get them above the threshold. And I've always thought, now that we've got Baker Mayfield, now that we're winning games in the NFL, the Knicks are the Cleveland Browns of the NBA pre-2017. They're the fan base that thinks, oh, we're so good. We've had a good history. We're going to do great. And there's really no basis for it. And I think this year's going to be no different. They're just hoping that I guess we had this same thing with LeBron, where a guy was living close to it that could save us. They're kind of hoping Kyrie could be that same type of thing for them. Other than that, what do they got going for them? They live there. It's the biggest city and biggest metropolis in the United States. I really don't buy in. Or I really don't see what's the appeal to being on the Knicks right now. Yeah, and I don't think they're going to make the playoffs.
So
I disagree with you there.
If you want to buy a new house, you can put a $10 bet on the Cavs, and you can win $300,000 plus $30,000 odds right now. 30,000 to 1.
Might as well.
That's a long shot there. Okay, all right. So now it's starting to get a little bit more interesting. The fourth pick in the draft is going to the Lakers. We talked about a couple of draft options, but if the Lakers keep this pick, it's going to really determine what is going to be available and what the options are for the Cavs. Eric, let's go back to you with this one. What do you think the Lakers are going to do with the fourth pick in the draft?
Well, this is clearly the most complex and difficult decision I've had to come up with all of the top 5, top 6 draft picks. Lakers are clearly the win now mode. Obviously, they have a short-term window with LeBron. They want to win the championship now. They want to win it whenever he's on the roster, and who knows how long he's going to be on the team. The problem is the big dysfunction and the big divide between ownership and GM and coach and everybody. There's words about who wants to trade who and this and that, and that's not really positive for the whole franchise. That being said, I'm not sure I would feel confident if I were a Lakers fan or Lakers management that we'd be able to get any of these free agents or be able to trade with other teams to try to trade up for good assets. So that being said, I mean, they could try to acquire Jimmy Butler or settle for a Kemba Walker type of player. I don't think any of them are coming to the Lakers. That falling through, I think they just got to stand pat. I mean, I'm going to be down on them. This is a terrible year for them, and I'm going to say they're going to take Cam Reddish. The only reason why is I think he has a, quote, high ceiling. He went to Duke, so you think he has some talent, and maybe he can just be one of those players that didn't really express all of his greatness in the collegiate level and can kind of stand out in the NBA. So I really don't have a ton amount of faith that they can, kind of build their roster and get some piece that can help them down the road. They got to go for now, and he gives them the best option.
Yeah, Reddish, that's an interesting pick. You don't hear too many people going Reddish at 4, but could be a weapon for LeBron to use on that team. Drew, what do you think, number 4 pick? Are Lakers even going to make a selection with that pick?
I sure hope not. Just because, us being, from the Akron-Canton area, I want to root for LeBron to have some success. I think he went out to Los Angeles essentially to sort of soft retire, but that doesn't mean I don't want to see him happy in that decision and have a chance, at making playoffs and winning a couple series or something. But just sort of imagine, put yourself in these young kids' shoes. You grew up idolizing LeBron James, and he comes to you, to your team. He signs there. He wants to play. You think he wants to play with me, and he gets there and says, "I want to trade all your asses." Right? Imagine that happen. That's just devastating, right? it's toxic there between that happening and the coaches and the GM, and just nobody's on the same page. So I certainly hope for LeBron's sake that that the Lakers, if they end up making this pick, it's the pick that gets included with the trade, and they send Brandon Ingram, and they send Kyle Kuzma, and they send whoever this pick turns out to be. Maybe Josh Hart goes with him. I don't know. And they end up with Anthony Davis. I certainly hope that that's what happens for LeBron's sake. If the Lakers do end up making it, I guess I like Darius Garland because I think he's the best three-point shooter. And he's also the only guy who is both a very good three-point shooter and somebody that can get his own shot. It sounds like a LeBron guy to me, a point guard who can shoot the lights out and get his own shot. He's not the level of a player of a Kyrie Irving, obviously. It's interesting, the player comparison that I hear on Darius Garland is Mo Williams, who was an okay player with LeBron. If they could have had some other, a shooting guard, as a center, a power forward, anybody else on that team, if he's your third or your fourth best option, you've got a shot. So I think he's the most LeBron-like guy that they could pick. But I don't love it. I don't think that he helps them this year or next year win a championship. And if that's the case, then what are we talking about with LeBron James in Los Angeles?
Yeah, some Mo Williams-like performance. That'd be really good for the Lakers if they could get that out of him. And they definitely need shooters. All right, let's move to the pick we've all been waiting for, the number 5 pick. We made some early guesses when we got the 5th pick. Let's see if that changes at all. Drew, let's go back to you here. Big pick for the Cavs. Who do we get to move this franchise forward?
Well, I don't like Darius Garland for the Cavs. I'd rather have Colin Sexton. So selfishly, I sort of hope that he goes earlier. The guy that I like the most is DeAndre Hunter. I said this on a podcast a couple weeks back. He's a small forward with a 7'2" wingspan who shot 42% from three-point in college. He also has a very good mid-range game. And he's an elite level defender that can switch on 1 through 4, can even switch on 5, and you don't have to panic help him right away. You're looking for somebody with some type of elite trait at this particular position, and his is an absolutely elite level defensive player who can shoot, and you hope that he develops into like a 3-and-D type who can also dribble a little bit and has a bit of a mid-range game. The comp that you hear for him is you want him to be Kawhi Leonard, but he doesn't have that kind of ball handling. He just doesn't, right? And that's one of Kawhi's best traits. So he's not that type of player, but his shooting game and his defense are very similar to that. And so I hear a mix between Thaddeus Young, who had a very good career, not somebody you want at 5 overall, but if that's your floor, and Kawhi Leonard potentially is your ceiling. He's not that level of player. I'm not making that comparison, but I'm giving you the sort of range of what I read, what you hear he might be. That's a pick that I think makes a lot of sense, and it's a big need position for the Cavs to have some type of wing presence. Outside of just Sexton and Love, there's nobody out there who can play the 3 spot. And once JR's gone, which after this year, there's nobody who can play 2. And so this solves one of those. This is a really solid 3-and-D small forward that I think can play on the team for a very long time and can be that number 3 option, which you're still looking to add.
Eric, what do you think the Cavs do with the 5th pick?
Yeah, like what Drew had said, I had 2 guys that I had said in a previous podcast, and I'm just going to stick with that. One of them Drew mentioned, DeAndre Hunter. The other one is Jarrett Culver. I will take Jarrett Culver because Drew took DeAndre Hunter. He's a two guard who's a good defensive guy who's been playing at Texas Tech and helped bring the team close to a championship this year. Like Drew said, we're probably going to move on from J.R. Smith. Thankfully, he brought us our championship. Great. I appreciate his third quarter heroics in Game 7, but it's time to move on. I think he'd be a good defensive shooting guard who can eventually develop an offensive game, who can play alongside Colin Sexton and be a good offensive weapon for this team. I think we can worry about defense later on in the draft or later on down the road. And he'd be a good pick for the Cavs. Can't imagine him being too much of a bust at this point. Maybe I jinxed him by saying that. But he's a tall, lanky defensive guy who can eventually put up some offensive numbers. Who we haven't had a good shooting guard in a while. Larry Hughes. I mean, it's been LeBron and a mediocre point guard for outside of past the Kyrie Irving stage for quite some time. So I just want like a nice, solid shooting guard for the Cavs, and I think that would be a good. You got your point guard, you got your shooting guard. You can focus on the other three positions going forward. So that's who I'd take a stab at number 5.
All right, let's move into the final promo, and we're going to round out the first round for the Cavaliers here and talk the 26th pick or any sort of odds and ends that the Cavs could do to make this one heck of a draft to turn this franchise around and get some $10 tickets, new houses. So let's start with these master plans. Eric, we're going to go with you here first. The 26th pick, is there any value left over that we could get at 26?
Yeah, I think if they go with Jarrett Culver at number 5, they're going to be looking for a bigger man at 26, and two good options, provided they're there, are Daniel Gifford or Bruno Fernando. Both of them are 6'10". Gifford, that's 6'10", center from Arkansas. He's a defensive warrior who doesn't have a tremendous offensive game. Maybe he could develop that. And Fernando is more of the athletic center, maybe the Zydrunas Ilgauskas, I guess, of the two, which, it could be a lot worse than that.
Sign me up.
Nobody can be Zydrunas.
and maybe Vitaly Potapico. I don't know.
That's possible.
And as a fallback option, not to steal this from Drew if he has this, but if they were to go with DeAndre Hunter at 5, then I would go with the shooting guards or the smaller guards in the 26th pick. I would go either between Tyler Herro, 6'6" shooting guard from Kentucky, who's known to have a good shot, or Zach Norvell, a 6'5" shooting guard from Gonzaga, who's also a good finisher as well as a good shooter. So, I mean, it's probably not the best scenario to go one base of the other. It should always be the best player available, but you got to fill your needs when you got to fill your needs. So right now I'm going to stick with Culver, and I'm going to go with Bruno Fernando is my guy, provided he's there. 6'10" center from Big Ten school of Maryland.
Okay, Eric is spreading all of his chips on the roulette wheel here. Yes. For many bets that might hit. Drew, what do you think? Do you have a single strategy that the Cavs should follow here at 26?
Yeah, I'm gonna throw all my chips onto one name. Okay. But before I get to that name, we're just gonna tease that a little bit. I've heard rumors, and these are just rumors. These are probably thoroughly unsubstantiated, but that it's in the realm of possibility that the Hawks might be interested in 5 and 26. That would be a swap of 8 and 10. And I would be very much in favor of making that trade. If there's somebody the Hawks love at 5, I would be very much in favor of moving down. I think there's a lot of names that I find very intriguing in that range that I don't find much separation in. There's a chance that Cam Reddish is still there. Eric already mentioned him. I won't go there. There's a chance Jarrett Culver is still there. Probably not. But outside of those two names, Kobe White, the comp I've heard on him is Gilbert Arenas. He's a really good combo guard. He can play shooting guard for the Cavs.
You can fire it from deep, right?
Yeah, absolutely. He's one of the best shooters. Yep. Deep in the cube. The rock. And then there's Siku Diomba. He's a Euro stretch 4. And then the other guy I like is Bol Bol. I've heard he's a center. He's what's his name?
Bol's son.
Manu
yeah.
Bol.
I could think of his name.
He named him his first name.
He's Manu Bol's son. It's Bol Bol. Yes. And I've heard him compared as the homeless man's Kristaps Porzingis. So I would be very much in favor of taking those two lottery shots at a Bol and a Kobe White and seeing if one of those two names is really good. I think that's a great strategy. If we can't do that, the name that I love at 26 is Dylan Windler, the 6'7" shooting guard from Belmont. On 100 threes per season in his senior and junior year, he shot over 43%. That you're talking 7 attempts per game. So this guy can shoot. He has a 6'10" wingspan for a shoot. We're talking for a shooting guard, a 6'10" wingspan. There are some drawbacks when you're talking about this end of the draft. He is a massive defensive liability. He's slow, right? He cannot. He's not going to create his own shot. Yeah, so was Kyle Korver, right? And that's the comparison. The comparison is Kyle Korver or Shane Battier. And that is a name that I love down at the end of the draft. If they don't get the 8-10 swap for 526, the name that you should think of at number 26 and hope he's still there, Dylan Windler, shooting guard, Belmont.
Dylan Windler, okay. I think that's like 1 to 35 odds on the roulette table there. We will record all of these and see what happens on draft night. Thank you, guys. We will see who wins here in the NBA Finals. Raptors, please do not blow this 3-1 lead for everyone.
I need a new jersey. So can we get Dylan Windler? I think that has to happen. I'll say it right now. I'll be the first owner of a Dylan Windler jersey if the Cavs draft him at 26 overall.
All right, we've got that on record. All right. Well, thank you, guys, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Okay.
Take care.